Hey cats, welcome back. I recently got back into the hobby of Pokemon card collecting, and if you're a Pokemon TCG fan yourself, you've probably heard of the Moonbreon card that the fanbase has been going crazy for recently. So using the card as inspiration, I decided to have a go at making a diorama of this beautiful card. And there you have it, but stick around and watch how I created this work of art from start to finish. I stymied this project like any other, marking and cutting some foam. This is 1-inch housing insulation foam, and it'll be used for the base and the house, but you'll see later on I do change some things up with both of them. To make the roof of the house, grab some paperboard like from this cereal box. The roof has a big curve to it, so I mark one side and cut it out, and using the cutoff piece I marked the other side to ensure it would be symmetrical. Once I had my 4 roof pieces cut out, I taped them together and glued them on the inside with generous amounts of hot glue. For the dormer windows, I cut out some triangles and glued some together to get the size and shape I wanted. Once I had figured that out, I traced the opening size on each side of the roof and cut out the openings. I struggled a bit holding the piece in place, but I eventually got them all glued in. Shingles. There are a few methods to making shingles and none of them are particularly fun, but here we've got some paperboard. I marked out this grid pattern and you'll see I cut the sides of each shingle, bend them up, skipping every other one, and then cut the strip out. It's tedious, but the end result is nice. Before gluing the shingles on, I give the roof a coat of black paint to prevent any gaps from showing through. Oh yeah, and I glued some scrap bits of foam around the dormers to give it a brick appearance. Gluing the shingles in place is fairly straightforward, and to speed the process up, I used hot glue. It was at this point I decided to redo the walls of the tower to make it a little taller. The thinner foam will also make cutting the window holes a lot easier. Once the windows were cut out, I covered the exterior in a bit of modeling paste to give it a stucco-like texture. After everything dried, I gave it a coat of Mod Podge to seal things up. Using some balsa wood, I cut some wood planks, and taking some artistic liberties, I decided to give the tower a half-timbered appearance. Here's a tip: use some painter's tape to hold smaller pieces in place while you paint them. My cat likes to come and inspect my work from time to time.
Meow.
Having painted the wood planks, the next thing to do before gluing them in place is to paint the exterior of the tower. I chose this creamy off-white. Want to see a magic trick? It's time for some window assembly. For these, I used some coffee stirring sticks that I bisected long ways and then cut to the appropriate length. This is a new method that I tried for making the cross pieces that separate the window panes. Simply glue them onto some paperboard and use an X-Acto knife to cut out the desired pattern. A little paint and they're ready to be glued on. For the roof windows, I decided to use this person plastic for a cross pattern window. To finish off the roof, I painted the tiles this true burgundy color. I also painted the bricks gray, but I did that off camera. And with that, the tower is complete.
Wow.
Time to make the main attraction of this whole thing, our dark feline friend, Umbreon. For Umbreon, I used Super Sculpey, starting with a sausage shape for the body, and then working on each leg, and baking the whole thing after finishing the subsequent limb. Now, I'll wholly admit that I didn't do a great job of recording the sculpting process. I'm still a beginner with sculpting, and my phone camera has started acting up a bit, so it was a little frustrating trying to get some good footage, but I digress. After finishing the body and legs, I did a bit of sanding. Umbreon has a very sleek appearance, and there were some lumpy bits that needed to be taken care of. I accidentally gave Umbreon a dumpy. Starting with a ball of somewhat proportionate size, I pinched the clay into the general shape of the head. Following that, I cut out some eye holes, and then pressed in tiny bits for the eyes themselves. Doing the eyes like this gives them a more realistic appearance instead of just painting them onto the surface. I gave the head a little nose off camera, and then baked it. To attach the head, I drilled a hole and used a bit of wire for support. Once I decided the proper neck length, I wrapped a bit of clay around the wire and smoothed it out. Time to work on those ears. I rolled out some matching cylindrical shapes and pinched the ends into their tapered shape. To affix them, I just used a bit of wire, just like the head, and did some rolling to smooth them out a bit. I gave the piece another bake and moved on to the tail, which is very similar to making the ears, another cylinder with tapered ends. One final bake and the sculpting process is complete. I give Umbreon a coat of Mod Podge and black paint. Much like everything else, the Mod Podge will seal things up and provide a good base to paint on. Once the Mod Podge had dried, I gave Umbreon a coat of black paint. Get it? Because her fur is black, it's coat. Anyways, moving on. The eyes were given a coat of white to make it easier painting them their actual color later on. And it's time to give this evolution its signature markings, some yellow circles and stripes. The color of yellow is called goldenrod, which seemed appropriate since it's the name of one of the cities in the Johto region. If you've ever painted with yellow, you'll know that it takes many coats to get even coverage. I lost count, but I think it took like 5 or 6 for me. I'll be honest, it kinda looked like a rabbit all the way up until the point that I painted it. Almost there though, just need to get those eyes a reddish pink color. Just one final bit of adding the pupils, and it's looking like the dark type evolution we know and love. Having completed Umbreon, I moved on to the final portion of the build, painting the background. I've got my foam canvas, an array of blue, green, and yellow paints, and my laptop with a picture for reference. Now, I'd like to say that I am an artistic and somewhat crafty person. From a young age, I like to draw and color, but personally I was never very good at painting. So it's always been a weaker area for me. But having said that, I am very satisfied with how the background painting turned out. To start, I laid down some base colors for the sky and sea. Before continuing, I needed to make a circle for the moon, since the whole image sort of radiates from that point. Instead of just painting the moon, I wanted to use a ping pong ball and make it 3-dimensional. But that's not all. I also stuffed some lights inside of it. Having established the moon location, I began adding the swirling sky around it, first with some blue and then adding bits of green. Just a little personal bit here, but I felt very at peace while painting this starry sky. I felt the joy of creating and trying something new, but it also made me think of my grandma. She passed away in September of 2015, and she herself liked to paint, and I was reminded of that. She was a wonderful person that lived her life the way she wanted it, regardless of anyone's opinion, and in hard times I think of her and strive to take the same approach she did in life. I miss her often, and I love her very much. I finished up the sky with the clouds and adding in little hints of yellow, and then moved on to the sea. With the sea finished, I added the final touch, sprinkling white paint to give the appearance of stars. Paint the moon. No hole in one for me. With some hot glue, I set the moon in place. I then added some lights and made this little box for the light switch. I also finished the background painting, adding the tower, and painting the base to look like city lights below. And with that, it's time for the beauty shots. If you stuck around for the whole video, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support. If you want to help me, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I also have a Patreon for those that want to support me in my future builds. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.